If you have ongoing exposure to controlling people, it's a virtual certainty that you're going to experience blurry boundaries, which is why I've created the extensive online course called This Is Me, Establishing Boundaries with the Controllers in Your Life. There's a link below that will give you all of the details, and I hope that you would find it therapeutic. One of the most difficult things you have to come to terms with as you're engaging, particularly in a long-term way, with people with strong narcissistic bent, is that there's a form of pain that continues to revisit you over and over, and you just simply can't make it go away. It won't disappear. Now, when we talk about narcissists and their engagements, entanglements with you, I've mentioned before that narcissists think competitively. When they engage with you, especially if there are moments where you differ or there's conflict or strain or tension, they think in terms of winners and losers. But I think that many of you realize that when they think about them being the winner and you being the loser, it goes further than that. Narcissists, in their desire to win, have decided, well, if I'm the inflictor of pain and you're the recipient of pain, that's how I get to my goal. I just pound you into submission and make you be who I say you're supposed to be, make you conform, make you do my bidding. And so they are, in fact, inflictors of pain. And over time, there are many terms that we use with respect to what that does to you. We can say that you can experience psychological trauma or trauma bonding. Sometimes there's a PTSD that goes along with the relationship with that narcissist. You might refer to yourself as having had psychological wounds or psychological scarring, emotional and mental damage. You've been humiliated, shamed. You can call it mental or emotional anguish. I mean, that's the aftermath of what happens from a long-term engagement with a narcissist. Now, I know that many of you, as you look at all of that, and you can say, oh, I can relate to every bit of what you're saying, Dr. C, you want to wish the pain away. You can ask, what does it take to make these dysregulated people quit being dysregulated? And how do I get to the point where I don't feel so awful? And then some of you, the more philosophically minded, might even go even further into it and say, why is there the presence of evil anyway? And why do we have to go through all of this, good versus evil kind of game all the way through our lives? What's the formula to make it go away? But in the end, there it is. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't go away. Pain is a natural byproduct of you being with a narcissist. Now, my heart goes out to you. And I have spent my entire career walking through this whole issue with so many individuals. And one of the problems we have is that, some of the solutions or some of the explanations that we have can feel incomplete. Now, let me give you some things, some illustrations of what I've had to talk with individuals about relative to their fallout from being with narcissistic individuals, and see how many of these that you can relate to. For example, when you've been exposed to narcissists, you have emotional confusion, or we might refer to it as an emotional hangover, by having been the recipient of that narcissist's anger. It hurts, it stings. And they have tight conditions over you about who you can be and where you're supposed to go. Or they put shame on you, and that shame, after a while, the messages, they begin to infiltrate your mind. Part of the pain that you have with living with a narcissist can also include just this feeling that says, I so want to be understood, but people don't really understand me. And as a result, not only am I not understood, but I'm ridiculed for feeling as I do and for thinking or having the opinions as I have. Part of the pain that you can have on an ongoing basis with a narcissist is You've been told over and over how pitiable you are and how you don't measure up, and that begins to erode your interior. You perhaps have been alienated. This is another way that the pain remains in you. You've been alienated from potentially vibrant or rewarding connections, whether it's inside a family, your children, your grandchildren, in social world. They love to push you away from others and others away from you. You've been on the receiving end of hatred and contempt. And then you're told, yeah, and it was your fault that I've had these feelings toward you. It may be that you've been cheated financially. There's been money scheming, or your livelihood has been compromised. I know that many of you have felt that you've been shunned by certain groups or individuals, ignored or deemed unappealing, all because of the script that the narcissist has written you into that in a negative way. Maybe it's been that your good name has been defamed, and part of that includes lies or half-truths being told about you, distortions about you and experiences that you've been through. It may be that you have had some very poor reactions to them, and they just grab onto it like, oh, I so have you now, and you have this anguish of thinking, they're going to have a hammer that they're just going to keep coming at me with some of the mistakes that I've made. You may have been the one that's had to come to terms with a narcissist's infidelity, physical violence, their own addictions. You may also have pain associated with the fact that you look back and realize that at one time in your relationship with that narcissist, they said positive words of affirmation and we're going to have loyalty and teamwork. And now you're at the place of saying, yeah, and it was all one big phony ruse. The net result of all of that is you carry disillusionment on the inside of you. Sometimes you go to your own place of cynicism. It may be that you've lost your confidence and bitterness creeps on the inside of you and you can't shake it. You may have gone into a withdrawal, which means that your good relationship skills have been underutilized. You may struggle with anxiety or depression or discouragement. So let's ask, what can you do when you know that there's this stuff out there that narcissists contribute to and they'll just keep doing it until the day they die? You've had to live with the painful repercussions. How are you going to respond? Now, I want you to focus on, there are going to be a couple of negative things I'm going to say and then some positive things. I want you to just recognize, do you think that pain can go away? And you're going to have to answer that question. No, it doesn't. And you won't be immune to it. By the way, I do want to remind you that when you have an abnormal response to an abnormal situation, that's normal. It's reasonable for you to say, I'm bewildered. It's like, yeah, if you don't feel bewildered, there's something wrong with you. And so let's not fault you for feeling what you feel. But at the same time, I am going to throw a couple of thoughts at you that I hope that you can consider very carefully. And that is, in order to deal with the pain that you've experienced, you're going to have to stop assuming that people or the world or the universe owes you something. This is a broken world. And there are going to be broken experiences that you and other people go through that simply cannot be avoided. Now, unhealthy people don't want to pay attention to what I just said. They'll seek perfection and they try to cram everything into their mold of idealism. It doesn't work. They seek authoritarianism where they try to pound people into existence or into compliance, I should say, or they seek escapism. But you're going to need to recognize the world doesn't really owe me anything. It's a broken world and I'm not going to be immune. Many other people also have experienced it, and I'm not going to delude myself into thinking I should be the one person that doesn't. In addition, we also want to recognize that your pain is not so unique that you try to make yourself the exception to the rule. As an example, I talk with people about having to have a good sense of character and maintaining their sense of well-being, and then they come back and say, yeah, but this is my grandchild that we're talking about. I was alienated from my grandchild, or I lost a lot of money, or this person was such a liar to me. What am I supposed to do in that situation? And the principles of life apply no matter what your situation is. Other people have gone through that too, and you don't want to make yourself such a unique victim that you begin thinking, well, I know that answers can apply to other people, but not mine because my situation's too rotten. Well, it's there it is. And so there's going to need to be an acceptance of the fact that you're not immune to life's foul balls and difficulties. No one is. Now, having said that, I'm hoping that there can be a side of you that says all of that pain being real and the fact that I can't run away from it, and I'm not so unique that I can ascribe immunity to it all. I'm hoping that you can decide, I refuse to collapse. Yes, this is a broken world, but there also is good in this world too. It's so fascinating when I hear about people who've had painful situations. I do also hear stories of the positive that shows up in the midst of that pain. A friend comes and they have an arm of encouragement around you, or a new opportunity comes along and it's like, well, okay, I can shift gears and reorient myself in a different kind of direction. You don't need to collapse. There are good things in the world that you can go towards. And I'm hoping that there be a side of you that says, well, I need to look outward instead of just staring at my own navel, trying to figure out what do I do to make this go away. And by that, I mean, if you have pain, I want you to be aware that others have pain too. You want to feel understood? So does someone else. Give it to them. You want encouragement? So does someone else. You know what it's like. Be a giver of that. You want peace? Become a giver of peace. And use your pain to become a builder of bridges in a healthy way toward people who may say, I may not have had your pain, but I can relate. I'm human too. There are people out there that will appreciate what you have, not just because of your experiences, but especially the fact that you've been there. They can think, well, maybe I can relate with you. You're a real person. You can have authenticity. One of the things that we're going to say is that you can't change the outward circumstance. And when you realize that you can't change the outward circumstance, that means the only thing you have left to look at is your inner self. And I do hope that despite the pain and the hurt and the misery that you have, and we're going to acknowledge that it's real, and we're not going to try to talk you out of it, you can challenge yourself to say, I still have integrity that I can build upon, and I can use my experiences as an empathy toward other individuals. And let's realize the pain is not going to disappear, but what you do with the pain can actually make you that much more capable of being someone who knows trustworthiness, love, and goodness. I hope that videos such as this can give you some good food for thought. If you've not already hit the subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. We'll keep more videos coming your way. If you have a need for therapy, we have a sponsor that the link is below, and I would encourage you to seek therapy there. As you go through the link, there's a whole host, a whole team of licensed professional therapists that you could avail yourself to. We have my books. And we also have we have a new podcast coming up. We have my courses that are meant to be therapeutic, Ready, Set, Connect, about connecting skills, free to be, this is me. Avail yourself to the resources we have. I know that you have pain. I also know that you have an internal strength and integrity that you can still tap into. Allow yourself to be human, but then, like I say, don't collapse. There's still decency out there. You'll need to find it, but it's there, and you can be a contributor to it. Not just as a way of escape, but as a way of working through. It can be done.